My man, Matthew Thomas out of Denver, the geologist, the barbecue connoisseur, the residential real estate guru, jack of all trades. I mean, you wear so many hats, Matt. Thank you so much for jumping on with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. It's great to be on with you and just chat and hang out with you
Oh,
for
yeah,
a little while. I'm looking forward to hanging out in person, but this will do for now.
Elite retreat, right? Vegas.
That's right. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we met. So I totally remember when we met at the summit, right, in Dallas. We met at the Pat's Happy Hour, and that was
Right.
pretty cool. Meeting some of the other coaching clients. I met a bunch of you guys over there, and I've chatted with one of the folks in our coaching program already, Jeff Clunan, in your state, right?
Bill, yeah, yeah.
That guy looks like he's always just like on some ski lift or petting some like exotic dog or something like that. He's always just like he's living it up outdoors somewhere.
That's well, first of all, that's Instagram life probably, and second of all, that's why you moved to Vail, man. Like, why else would you move to Vail? Like, it's Vail's vertical, dude. So if you drive through that valley, it's not very wide. It's wide enough for a highway and a golf course and a few houses. Everything else just goes vertical. So I used to ice climb in Vail actually. So
how far is Vail from Denver?
it's about 2 hours.
Not too bad, man. That's awesome.
It's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, we get the ski traffic can make it way worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to make it to Vail even if there's no traffic in much less than 2 hours, but you can do it. Hour and 45 minutes. Vail is from Denver is over two passes though, so you have to go up I-70. You go through Eisenhower Tunnel, which is a mile-long tunnel through a mountain. You cross the Continental Divide in a tunnel. You go on the other side, and then you go down into this valley where like Summit County is, and then you go back up into Vail Pass, and Vail Pass tops out over 10,000 feet, so it's gnarly.
Right. So you guys are around, as they say, the Mile High City, right? So I'm assuming around a mile. Vail's about two, so you're already up at like 5,500, 5,600
Yeah, I
elevation.
mean, yeah. So Denver literally is right at a mile high, and Denver sits in a valley. Not too many people think of it that way, but like where I'm at, I'm about 5,400, just like in the suburbs area. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then Vail. So Vail Pass is, I mean, where he's at in Vail, he'd probably be down from that. So he's probably like 8,000 feet, but still it's high.
Yeah. You guys have that altitude advantage, right? If you're an athlete.
That's right, man. Yeah, that's right. Like this is normal air for us to breathe. So
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. I know like before, like I know that they have these altitude masks, and I don't know how effective they are, but I do know some MMA fighters that used to train at places like Denver or Colorado Springs, just because of the altitude that yeah, so give them that advantage, that all those extra red blood cells, come fight time.
Yeah, I know a guy who's a hardcore trainer. I'm not sure I think just for health, but he just got his hyperbaric chamber and he now sleeps in it. So I don't know if he's preparing to go to Everest or what. He's actually a Tom Ferry coach, actually. So
Oh wow, okay, that's
yeah.
cool. He's out in Colorado as well.
He's in Colorado. Yep, yep. I actually used to be really into climbing. If you look at me now, that's his body by bar. So I'm never meeting you, dude. So like I need to trim down and get back into it. But yeah, like I said, I used to do things like ice climbing and hiking a lot of big peaks. I used to travel around the world a little bit. I was in a couple of videos that were instructional climbing videos. So that's kind of a different life. So
Geez, that's super cool, man. I always try to hit like a sales edge conference, summit if I can, right? And then get on like Blueprint as well. And I'll look at of the list, right? And I'll see like which towns are available for the year, and then I book my travels, the business travels, based on that. I haven't committed to like Houston, or the last time I saw Anaheim that came up for sales marketing, because I'm like just crossing my fingers that they'll do something like Denver, then I can come out over there, because that's somewhere where I've been really wanting to have an excuse to get out to.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I remember going to like a sales edge or something up in Toronto. And it was just like, now I got to see the Niagara Falls, got to go to Canada, and it was just so like you definitely want to plan those strategically so you can go somewhere fun.
Oh yeah, man.
That's why they don't have them in Indiana.
Ooh, yeah, dude. I have some friends in Raleigh as well that I haven't seen in years. So
Raleigh's awesome. Yeah, Raleigh's a cool place.
And then who I'm going to be hitting up for the barbecue recommendations anywhere I go outside of Denver.
That's right, man. Even if you end up in Houston, Houston may not have a lot going for it, but if you want some serious barbecue, man, they've got a lot of good places there.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I haven't been to Houston yet. I know it's the fourth largest city in the country. I mean, right behind Chicago, so that incentivizes me to want to check it out. I've been to Dallas and Austin numerous times, but
Yep.
never Houston or San Antonio. Yeah, both of those are on my list. But back to you, Matt. How long have you been selling real estate in the Denver area?
Yeah, since 2009. I got licensed like at the end, like in November of 2009. Sold my first house by New Year's Eve, of 2009. So yeah, about 14 years.
There you
I
go,
guess
man.
technically I'm now in my, am I starting my 15th? Is that something like
Yeah,
that?
getting into
Yeah.
14th year, 15th, yeah,
Oh,
close.
wow. Yeah.
But dude, let me ask you this: what made you see, what's going on? Anytime you would turn on the headlines, you would hear about, what the Fed is doing at that time. Chairman Bernanke was, I think, Chairman Bernanke, right? Bernanke was running the Fed, and
Could
all the
be.
craziness that ensued, right, with the Great Recession. What
Yeah.
made you be like, you know what I want to do? I want to quit my job, go into business for myself, and sell real estate. What happened?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. To be honest, I didn't quit my job. I got laid off, and it was probably one of the hardest things that ever happened. But it was also one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Sure.
So it's just one of those things you rebound from. I mean, it was kind of honestly like emasculating. Like it was like I've got a family to feed. I didn't make a ton of money, as a geologist, but I got laid off from that, and I was like, man, what am I going to do now? There's no way I'm going to go into something where I have to rely on, sales and getting a commission every time, and that just scared me to death. But as I looked for all these different opportunities in geology to continue on with that career,
Mm-hmm.
it was all I knew at the time. I also didn't see a lot of upward mobility. I didn't see anything that I really wanted to do there either. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, why not go reinvent myself? And there's
Yeah.
there's a really cool job that I was actually gunning for at that same time that opened up, was actually developed for me with the state of Colorado. Would have been like my dream job as a geologist,
Mm-hmm.
but that dried up when they were trying to find funding from all these different federal programs across the country to be able to basically pay Wall Street, bail out Wall Street. And once that happened, I'm like, well, I always say it's like climbing a mountain. Like somebody just comes down from the trail and you say, how does it look up there? And they're like, there's nothing up there, man. You're like, how could there not be anything up there? Like you're on the wrong trail, like
Yeah.
there's nothing for me to see up there. There's nothing for me to hike to, climb
Right.
to. So I was like, I'll get off that and just get on a different trail. So
Hey,
nothing was
good.
going well, in 2008, 2009, but that's when it was a good time to reinvent myself. So that's what I did.
Did you have somebody that you were close to that was doing real estate? Like, what was that aha moment that you chose that career?
I had a couple of, I mean, I thought it would be cool to do, but I had a buddy out in Virginia that was doing it, and he talked to me a lot. And I had a buddy that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in Colorado with me, but he was in Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
and he really got me into it. In fact, he introduced me to Mike Ferry. He's still with Mike Ferry. Mike Ferry is the godfather of real estate coaching, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he just teaches a very simple, practical way, and it just resonated with me. I actually, after I'd gotten laid off, I went back to an old company, worked for about a month on some contract work, and made enough money to basically be able to live like on a shoestring just to get by, so I could put myself through real estate school. And that's what I did. And I listened to Mike Ferry CDs, like training CDs, for like a month straight.
Hell
And I was
yeah,
just
you did.
like, all right, I'm gonna be like that guy, he's like Vince Lombardi of real estate. You're like, I'm gonna run through a brick wall for this guy. So it's like I can do this now. So that's what I did. And it got me super pumped on being able to make it. But
That's awesome, man. Wow, Mike Ferry. So my dad's been with Mike since '96.
yeah.
My dad's a big Mike Ferry guy. Growing up, when we would take our family trips, whether it was going up to Sacramento, which is about 2 hours away from where I live in San Jose, or even up to like Lake Tahoe, Reno area, we take this like annual family trip to the snow because my brother and I always loved being in the snow, and we would always have to listen to these Mike Ferry cassettes, at the time, and his freaking Toyota Camry, that maroon Toyota Camry, man, and we'd always have to listen to these things, and every single time that I would like be upset with something, let's just say, I had some issues with a friend or whatever, my dad would always use one of those Mike Ferry lines, like Nima. He would look at me because he's so intense. He would like, cut the E and go. Like for ego, he would like cut out the E and go. Or he
That's
would be like, every time I
hilarious.
would finger point, like, you can't say that. He goes, every time you point your finger, there's 3 pointing back at you. Like all of these cliche Mike Ferry uh, phrases he would
Yeah.
use in our like just regular day-to-day lives. So when you say that, it totally reminds me of those. And Matt, did you ever have a chance to go to any of those superstar retreats? Because as a kid, my dad used to
I
take me
did.
to those in Palm Springs.
Yeah, absolutely. I did.
Yeah.
I went to several of those. And kind of like we were talking earlier, I actually, so I've been to all 50 states, and like one of the things that got me to like the last couple of states that I wanted to get to was I did a retreat down in Miami and fell in love with like South Florida down there. I'm like, man, this place is awesome. But
Yeah, it is.
yeah, man, I mean, that's how I started. I was in the business only, well, it was my first year. I mean, I'd been about 6 months, and I went to the that first retreat down in, I can't remember. It's probably in Las Vegas. That's probably where it
Yeah, yeah.
was.
Now they have them
It
in
was
Vegas.
weird just seeing 5,000 real estate agents jumping around in a hall together in their suits, and
Yes, yes.
but it was awesome, man. I mean, it was, it was exciting. So Mike Ferry's, when you look at his lineage, like, it's really strong, like where he got mentored, who he got mentored by, and who that guy got mentored by. And it goes back to like Napoleon Hill, and Think and Grow Rich. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's just, it's legit. He's legit. So that's where that came from. But yeah, I definitely went to superstar retreats, and eventually obviously Tom Ferry's retreats and stuff. But
Cool, man. Yeah, what my dad once told me, I think his mentors were, was it like Earl Nightingale,
that's right.
uh Gunther Klaus, and I think there was one more guy. I don't know if it was Bob
There's
Finn.
a few of them. It's been a while since I've thought about it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's like, like 3 degrees of like Andrew Carnegie. It's like, wow, that's insane, so
Right, yeah.
yeah.
And you can't, I mean, regardless, and I know obviously Tom's doing his own thing now, and you can't, and I see him referencing a lot of, oh, my mentor, my mentor. I know it's his dad's mentor, like he'll
Right.
mention that a lot in the podcast, because I know his dad would talk about those folks, because obviously I knew his dad before I knew who he was, just because of
Well,
my
he's an
dad.
extension of those as well.
Yeah, yeah,
And then he grows up with guys like, Tony Robbins, and you're like, that's just somebody you knew growing up. Like that's crazy, right? So he just lived that life that was it's interesting to me. In fact, when we talked to our coach Patrick, and he talks about his going on vacations with his dad, and he talks about like pulling out like Mike Ferry go on vacation, he'd be sitting by the pool, but he'd be sitting there with like a yellow legal pad and just be scratching down ideas. And he's like, he never stopped working. I'm like, it's impressive. That's where he's coming up with all that stuff that he'd said to inspire you and your dad back in the
yeah,
day.
man.
So
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And the reason why I chose Tom over Mike personally, so I got my real estate license in 2005, but I wasn't active with it. I was fresh out of high school. I had graduated and I was going to college, and I went to Cal, which is about an hour and some change, here from San Jose, not too far. So I
yeah,
would come down the freeway and I would hold open houses for my dad in his farm, which was around 45 minutes away from the school. So nothing really, big, make a few deals total, right? Nice pocket change for somebody in
yeah,
college to go out and hang out and have a good
for
time.
sure. Yeah.
Right. But I didn't go full time until 2014. And when I was thinking like go towards Mike or Tom, because my dad kept pushing me, he's like, when you're really in, he would always say like these condescending things, like when you really want to take your business to the next level, you'll come
Right.
join Mike and I.
Right.
That's it. Like he's like, right. But you're going to come join Mike Ferry and I. But there's
Yeah.
other intimidators out there, and I'm like, Dad, like, does he pay you to say these things? But
I
he's
know. Well,
just
I mean, I felt kind of weird when I left Mike Ferry, honestly, because that's the kind of, there was some sort of intimidation factor. And um, I mean, Tom's approach was like, you can get business from anywhere. Let's just
yeah,
figure out what it is that works for you. He's like, if you're the kind of guy who wants to get all your business from like joining a foursome on the golf course and like just chatting it up with people and connecting that way, he's like, there's nothing wrong with that. Just have a plan. And I'm like, that's cool. I mean, and of course, like the Mike Ferry side's like, that's not a plan, like
yeah,
that's a good way to, and so I'm like, well, he's probably right. But you realize like there's massive structure with Tom. So either way is right. And it just seems like a natural progression of my business to be with Tom too.
yeah. I totally agree. And that's my personality as well, because I connect with people, and I'm sure you're like this, Matt, because And by the way, Patrick had mentioned this about you before to me. We were chatting. I'm like, yeah, Matt Thomas, that guy's the man. He was so cool when I met him. And he's like, Matt's really good at connecting with people. I remember that's what Patrick told me. And he had told me that you guys have been working together for a long time. He and I have been
Yeah.
coaching together now for a little over 3 years now. Yeah. For you, how long has it been?
Well, with Patrick, just 2 years, but like I've known Patrick basically since the Mike Ferry days.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where that connection goes back. Like I used to visit Patrick in the prospecting,
Yeah, the
is that
prospecting
the
school you put
prospecting
on, right?
school?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is such a wild concept, man. You go out to Vegas, but it wouldn't be on the strip or anything like that. It's just this office building, and that's where again my buddy down in Arizona, he was a real inspiration. He'd go there and he'd set 13 appointments, in a day or two, and just crush it, and but Patrick would get on the phone, you're just standing there like in these booths or the cubicles kind of, and he'd have you just make your calls to the people that you need to call. And he'd like patch in, like there was this technology where you just like take a cord and plug in. So Patrick Ferry is standing there looking over your shoulder while you're calling somebody. You're already nervous about it.
Yeah, right.
It's but the people who like just put that to the side and were able to crush it, man, they did so well. But you realize like everything that every good agent ever said like went through Patrick, like it just passed by him, because that's, he was dealing with these big appointment centers and prospectors, and he knew all the best lines, and you can see that in his coaching now. So
That's a good
pretty
point.
awesome.
I never even thought about that. That's true. You can just
I
jump in.
started coaching with Mike Ferry, not just listening to his stuff, but again, within that first 6 months, and then really have been in coaching ever since. So I've been in coaching for 13, 14 years.
Nice. Okay. So
Yeah.
13 years total. Yeah, I started back then, like in 2019. I always thought to myself, like I have my dad who I'm sure, by the way, you probably like rubbed elbows with him or walked
Probably.
past
Yeah.
prospecting school, because he built his business on that, and he's big into prospecting. And he always tells me the same thing, with his line. He has this heavy accent still, and he's just like, I have this heavy accent with this mustache, and my name is Ali. What's your excuse? He tells me that you can't get on the phone. Listen to me. I've been in this country for 40 years. I can still barely speak English. How do I get? But he's condescending like that. He self-deprecating. I'm sorry, I should say. The guy still pulls like 55, 70 listings a year.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I mean?
awesome.
He's savage. And
Yeah.
he just kind of let all that stuff go. And yeah. And his profitability, I mean, is just through the roof, because he says, and again, he makes fun of me, because I like to passively like run these ads and stuff. He goes, I don't pay a penny for any of these things. All I pay for is direct mail and my phone line to call people. And
Yep.
it's such a Mike Ferry product.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. I mean, but again, like that's one way to make business. It doesn't have to
Right.
be the only way. But how do you
Yeah.
argue with profitability? That's
Right.
kind of what business is for sure. So
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
That's a
Yeah,
long.
if he's been around that long, probably run into him. He was probably used as an example, like, on stage or something before. And, I just don't remember him. I'm not sure if I've met him or not, but
Yeah, I think you guys used to have a competition, I believe, at the prospecting school, like whoever to land the most appointments or whatever. There
yeah.
was a few times that, from what Patrick told me, there was a few times that he had won that, and Patrick was telling me about it. But
That your dad did.
yeah, that my dad did. But I still give him a hard time about it. I'm like, no, you didn't. Just kind of, But I mean, he's when you talk about Mike, the way you describe him, Matt, really reminds me of my dad, because he was that type of guy where his brain was always going, and I would give him a hard time because when we were on vacation, he was always just slamming the phone, like legal pad. Like that was who he was too.
Yeah.
And it would really frustrate me a lot of the time because I felt like he was so married to the business, and his focus was always only on that. But now the older I get, there's nothing I'm like, I can't, what am I going to say when you've been able to accomplish that? Geez.
Yeah, exactly. I think part of that's generational. I mean, your dad obviously like isn't from this country, right?
Right.
Right. So I mean that goes into it. Anybody given that type of an opportunity just seems to take it and run with it. So that's killer. My dad was a workaholic too. I mean, he always had his own business, so he would always, I mean, vacations were the only time that I felt like I could really get my dad's attention, in great amounts until he got much older. And then when he was in vacation mode, like, he was pretty present in vacation mode because he had a business. Like this is before like you could be super connected, in all the ways we're connected now. But
yeah,
like we took vacations very seldomly. So, it was like making that connection with my dad. I mean, was impressive. I just saw him work and work and work and work. But you know, there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about living a little life too. And so,
A little balance is good, right? Everything in
yeah,
moderation, as they say. That's what we strive to do.
that's
So,
right.
like, dude, your geology background. I'm really curious how you decided to go into that type of field. And I'm also curious as a geologist how that helps you in your real estate practice.
You want
If at all.
the long story or the short story? I mean,
Give me the cliff notes.
the Cliff Notes. Well, I mean, you know, I was like one of those guys in college that was just undecided, right? So,
Uh,
I knew. So my dad actually was in construction, and I knew I did not want to be in construction. That's
yeah.
what put me through college. My brothers and sister went to some college, but nobody finished it. My dad never went to college. My mom didn't go to college, so I wanted to go because I did not want to be in construction forever.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't know what I wanted to be, really, to be honest. I was used to being outside in construction, working outside, and that's has its pluses and minuses, of course.
Yeah.
But I was in a so this is back in the day when they used to have like an airline ticketing office before you could
Uh,
like just jump online and buy a ticket.
yeah.
I went to this airline ticketing office, and there's this dude at the counter. He was like all tan and like kind of grizzled, and like just he looked like he'd lived a good life, you know. And
Uh-huh.
he was talking about traveling to Turkey, and I'm like, what the heck? So I approached him. I'm like, do you mind if I ask you what took you to Turkey?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm a geologist. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And so we talked a little bit, and I realized like he talked to me about like the balance of being, you know, having something new and different every day, doing some exploration stuff,
Hmm.
being outside, but you know, still having a technical background, like, you know, office work was a nice mixture. And I thought that sounds like the life for me. So I just decided to pursue that. And I'm, you know, being from Colorado, like I love to see I don't know, the mountains and the rivers and all those types of things that, you know,
Yeah.
kind of our geology that's very front and center. So it just seemed like a good way to go into that. I was in geology for about 7 years after college. Um, and I traveled the country and was trying to travel the world with that job. But the last company I was with, it was going to have me do some international traveling, didn't have me travel much. That's a different story. But anyway, like, you know, I'd studied a lot of soil, like soils and things like that. And so, like when it comes to like as a real estate agent now, um, so in Colorado we don't have earthquakes. We don't have. I mean, we do have wildfires, but we don't have like we don't have tsunamis. We have, you know, we don't have a lot of like we don't have hurricanes. So the number one thing that like from a natural disaster that gives people problems is the soil conditions that we have here.
Hmm.
So we actually have this expansive clay soil that can come out of it comes out of the mountains, and it's basically it causes a lot of problems for people's in their basements, right? So when I go through a house, I don't look at it just from I'm not an inspector, but I know where these areas are that are problematic. And so when we look at foundations and that kind of thing, like, you know, I understand, you know, what to look for and how to avoid certain things, who to talk to, proper ways to fix it, and that kind of thing. So that gives me an advantage.
Nice.
Plus my construction background, I actually was in my dad when he was in construction, he built foundations, concrete foundations.
There you
So
go.
like concrete foundations, soil work, and now houses, like there's a total connection there. And I think that's, you know, a unique perspective that I can offer to people for sure.
That's amazing, Matt. I'm going through a deal right now. I have some clients that are interested in writing an offer, and they're adamant on using a contractor that's a family friend that's on vacation now, who's posing some difficulties and returning their calls.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's a crack in the foundation, and instead of hiring a structural engineer, you know, and paying 600, $800, you know, whatever it is, to go out to the property and survey it, they want him to come by and take a look at it. Now
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, I wish I had the training or somebody immediately that can come and I can confidently, you know, take their recommendation, actually believe they know what they're saying.
Yeah.
You're that guy because of
Yeah,
your
sort
background.
of.
You're
I
the
mean,
guy.
I still technically only have one, you know, business license here, and that's just real estate. So I have to be careful. But yeah, I mean, you know, I talk to people over and over, like they're pleased that they can talk to me about these types of issues because again, there are pockets of Colorado in the Denver Front Range. You walk into it and like you just know that all those houses have had problems with their foundations. And how do you fix it? And is it a big deal? And can we live with it? Can we resell it down the road? And all those kinds of things. And those are things that I can speak very confidently about. I can't necessarily say I'm going to be your geologist now, but I can definitely help people, and like that's one of the foundation is like literally like one of the biggest concerns people have about buying a house is like, is this thing going to fall apart? Is it going to crack and have all these problems? And so we can navigate those together a lot better than most people can.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Right now, we're having a lot of rainstorms here in California, which I'm really grateful for, right? Considering that we've been in a drought for so many years,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
right? And it's just been so dry, and now it's so amazing. It's, for lack of a better term, refreshing to see,
Yeah.
our reservoirs getting, filled again. And now at my open houses, a lot of people are coming by and asking about, because we have this listing, this beautiful home, in the foothills, and it's kind of perched on a little, like in the foothills, and it's kind of like on a, it's not on a full grade, it's kind of like at an angle like this. And folks are asking about flood insurance and if we need flood insurance. And for me, those types of questions are very easy to answer because I can just, reference the natural hazard disclosure that we have. I'm not sure if they have these in Colorado as well, but we have them in California, and I can just go off of that. But somebody like you, I feel like would, with your training, can easily go outside and kind of like survey the soil and just have a better. And I know you're not licensed in that anymore, but you definitely have a leg up with surveying things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it just gives me more understanding of a site and what the potential hazards are. Even just to make the right recommendations so that they talk to the right people. But usually when they hear it from, I mean, it's a lot better than saying I have no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
So when we can talk about those things, and people appreciate the well-rounded approach and perspective that that I can offer. So
Yeah, that's awesome, bro.
for
That's
sure.
cool. Hey, by the way, I know you were in Europe for a while, and I was living vicariously through your Instagram posts. How many countries did you see? How was it? How long were you out there for?
Yeah, we like six countries. Um, I mean, we saw a few well, so we went to Germany. My
Uh-huh.
wife used to live in Germany for a while.
Okay.
And so it was really cool. She hadn't been back in about 27 years or so,
Wow.
I think. So like, she had a chance to speak some German. We were actually also celebrating our anniversary, which is
Nice.
25 years. So
Congrats, man.
anyway,
Hey.
so yeah, so I mean, but we started in Germany. I love Germany.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was really great. I was honestly a little worried. It looked at some point I thought maybe it's going to get a little boring because how many like castles and like just the history is really old. And I guess for me being I'm a well-traveled American, but like there's certain aspects of like history that look like a little boring. I don't know about all these kings
Right.
and all these different things. It
Yeah.
comes to life though when you're there, and that's what's really cool about it, because you think, well, how relevant is it until you get there? And then the stories come alive, and you can point to a castle that's been there for a million years or 1,000 years, and you're like, you can't even contemplate anything being around for 1,000 years here. So
Exactly. Yeah. It's
yeah, but
perspective,
we went,
right?
yeah, we did. So and then we did like a gosh, we went into the Netherlands, which was kind of cool. um Belgium, we just kind of saw it. We technically just kind of stepped foot in it, right? But then we did a river trip, and that was really cool because we went from we went into Austria. We saw Salzburg, which is amazing. It was right on the foothills of the Alps,
Yeah.
and you could see back into the German. We're in like Bavaria, that area, so it's really cool. And then we went to Vienna, one of the great cities of the world. We went
Mhm.
to Bratislava, is in Slovakia, the old part of Czechoslovakia, right? Part of the Slovak region.
Yeah.
And then we went into Hungary. So Budapest is an amazing city, really cool place.
Man, you were looking at some really cool things. I love those Christmas markets that you guys were going to.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. The food, I mean, those pretzels and those brats looked amazing.
That's it, man. Honestly, we just had brats last night. That's not normally a thing we have a lot of, but my wife made a
Uh,
full German dinner last night. So we had potatoes and brats and like rotkohl. But
uh,
yeah, dude, like the eating their food there is so legit. I mean, in these Christmas markets would just have these, and they had like 2 foot brats, which is crazy. And just the smells and the music and like the feeling. It was cold, but like the Christmas light, like it's sort of magical. Like I think everyone, if you're especially if you're into the Christmas holiday season, like you should definitely go to Germany and go see the Christmas markets. It's really cool.
Yeah, that looked amazing. You had mentioned river, right? You guys went like on a river. Did you go like on one of those river cruises?
We went on a river cruise. Yep. That
Was it
was
on
for
the
the second
Rhine?
part of the trip. It
Yeah,
was
that
the Danube.
okay.
But
And which river? Was it the Rhine River?
the Danube.
Oh, the Danube. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We did go to the Rhine. That's where we saw a bunch of castles, but the Rhine is kind of in north and western Germany, and then the Danube goes through the southern part, and
Mhm.
then it goes on all these borders, which is what allowed us to kind of go from like country to country to country. If we would have kept going, we would have ended up in Ukraine. Would have been the next country would have gone to, which is probably not a wise idea right now.
Yeah, yeah, I would I'd say so.
And then we would have probably ended up, I think, in Bulgaria and Romania. Then
Mhm.
it goes out, I think, to the Black Sea, if I'm not mistaken. So
Wow. And they've been saying how, well, at least I've been reading about how like it's been abnormally warmer, and as a result, like the river levels have been receding lower and lower. And some parts, I believe it was the Rhine, that they couldn't even get past, like boats can't get past. Did you have any of these issues on
we
your
didn't
river?
have that issue, but we were on the Danube itself. We did have that was potentially going to be had we gone like earlier in the year, that
Mhm.
would have been an issue.
Oh, okay.
So we found out that they had spots they couldn't get these river cruisers down. The rivers, being from Colorado, like and we're obviously you're from the west as well. Like I mean, the rivers there are probably a lot more like they are back east. Like they're real rivers where there's a lot of water. And to me, to think that that river is low, like, is crazy. Because I mean, we have our rivers are just trickles. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
no water in them, and that's just normal. Because that's we live at the top of the continent. But like out there, like they just big wide rivers, tons of water in them. So, but yeah, it was. They said it was dry enough that they were having problems getting passage in some spots, but not while we were there. It was better
Good.
at that point.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, you wouldn't want that all of a sudden. Freaking land ho, Like, wait, I wasn't anticipating this stop. What the
that's right.
heck?
Exactly.
um, so one of my favorite things to ask you about is barbecue. Now,
Yeah.
you're like my go-to. I mean, it doesn't matter where I'm going. I'm going to ask you for recommendations. And I remember you were chatting with me when we first met in Dallas. You were telling me about this amazing barbecue place that you rented a car and drove out to out of Austin. Was it Snows, right?
We went to Snow's Barbecue. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of barbecue. Like I travel the country for barbecue.
Oh yeah.
And just recently went to South Carolina on a trip with a couple guys to do that. But yeah, Snow's was kind of fun because Snow's at the time was rated by Texas Monthly, which is a magazine in Texas.
Hmm.
Of course, Texas believes they're the best at everything, and they're probably not. They're probably not wrong when it comes to barbecue. Texas barbecue is a barbecue type unto itself. Um, Snows was rated the number one in their mind up until the most recent edition came out. But Snows, I think part of it was the allure. So there was a Netflix special that came out with this lady named Tootsie, and she is an 80-plus-year-old pitmaster. Basically, this place is
Wow.
open once, like one day a week. So the urgency that they've created with it, like the uniqueness of it, is part of how I think it got to number one. It's phenomenal barbecue. It's done right. It's done old school. But we actually went out there and they open their doors and they start serving barbecue at 8 a.m., which is a weird time to eat, lunch
Yeah.
food. But they do that because the lines are so long. Well, we got there at 5:30. And by the way, this was May of 2021. We rented a car, but the funny story is that we actually we rented the only thing that was available to rent at the time, because there was a car shortage, was a Hertz van. And we got to Hertz and they didn't have any vans. We're like, what are we supposed to do? I looked at renting luxury vehicles. I'm like, what can we do?
Wow.
Well, Snow is, if you fly into Austin, is still like a good hour and a half outside of Austin. So you got to roll up to this. So we ended up going to Home Depot and I rented a $25 a day truck.
There you go.
And we just
Innovative. It wasn't going to stop you. That car
No, there's
shortage
no way
wasn't
in
going to
hell,
stop
man. So not when the number one barbecue is in the world is at stake. So
you. Amazing.
we went out there about 5:30, and at 5:30 we arrived, and we were the 132nd people in line
Hmm.
at 5:30 in the morning. and I didn't end up eating until a little after 11. So it took us about 5.5, 6 hours to eat, or before we be standing in line before we actually got to eat.
And then you bringing a chair out there with you to kind of relax a little bit?
I did. Well, yeah, let's see. Did we do that? No, that one we didn't do that. We just borrowed some chairs. I brought a chair with me to Dallas to go out and see that place. That was when I was in Dallas earlier when I met you. That's when I brought my chair with me because I was flying Southwest. So I'm not gonna sit in any like, my history of going to the #1 barbecue in Texas was that you're gonna need a chair. You're gonna need your own chair. So I literally brought a folding chair with me from Colorado just for that.
That's awesome, man. I love that. That's like the passion, I just love seeing people like, geek out over their passions and what they're good at, and what, like, I mean, dude, you can't tell me you're not passionate about barbecue when you get in line at a spot that's an hour and a half away in Austin at 5:30 and you're, number 132 and you're like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, man. And the atmosphere actually kind of emboldens you because, or sustains you, if you will, because honestly, if I just told you, Nemo, like we're gonna go sit someplace and stand an hour in line for 6 hours, you're like, I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't camp overnight for Star Wars tickets. I wouldn't, the Super Bowl, like whatever it is, you're like, there's no way in hell I'm standing in line for that long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So like, if I would have known for sure it was going to take 6 hours, don't think I probably would have done it. I thought it would be about 3.5 hours, and I'd done that once before in Austin, trying to get into a place several years ago, and I'm like, I mean, I don't drink, but like they were giving people tons of free beer and stuff like that. They had to keep people interested. That's a long line, especially in the sweltering Austin heat and humidity.
Dude, that's right.
But anyway, man, I mean, it was well worth it, just because there's so much to talk about with people that are there. People were laughing at the fact that we had a Home Depot truck that we drove there with, so we had
Yeah.
good stories to tell. But that made it worth the 6 hours, and somehow, and I was also with my wife, so we passed the time. That was nice. But like 6 hours to wait for anything is that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. But I'm sure you made some connections out there. Like that's a good point that you bring up. Other people in line, I mean, with similar
Yeah.
mindsets as you, and they're big barbecue folks. And I mean, I'm sure I noticed one of your posts, and when you were in South Carolina, I think you had met like a pit master or something. Like these guys, and like you geek out when you see them. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's really cool is like, I mean, obviously you and I talk football a lot. If you run into a football star, like you're not going to get audience with those guys. And I'm not saying that meeting a barbecue star is the same thing, but I do know a lot of people that are in barbecue. I know, some people that are really connected in barbecue. But I can't say that I'm best buddies with all these, mega pit masters, but there are some of them. But anyway, they're just accessible. They're just normal people. It's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
if you say, hey, I want to meet these guys, some of them, they're a little too busy at certain times, but a lot of them, you can hang out, meet with them, whatever. So
That's really cool. Did you ever have a mentor that got you into it?
yeah, yes and no. I mean, there was a guy here locally, I think mentored me more when I got into competition barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I actually said I would like to go with you and like just hang out with you, because competition barbecue is a totally different thing. That's now when you're cooking it for yourself, or cooking it on your own for someone else and for a competition. Well, when you
Yeah.
realize that, like, when they judge you at a competition, you're talking about now everyone knows how to do it really well, and they're looking for the finest details, which some people say pulls the fun out of it. It's You don't make that type of barbecue the same way that you're going to make barbecue for your friends at home or something like that.
Sure.
Your friends are going to be like, hey dude, that's cool. They're going to be very forgiving. Everything's going to taste good to them. Whereas at a competition, you're going to be nitpicked for everything. And I'm talking about, the tools that you might use would be like tweezers, because there's too many flecks of pepper on a rib or something like that you've coated and painted just right, and all these things. So that's you have to be passionate about competition barbecue, because otherwise you're not gonna want to do it for very long.
Jeez, yeah. What are some of the characteristics? So they even look at the tools that you're using.
Well, they don't look at the tools you're using, but they'll look at, I mean, they literally, if I'm standing here with a bunch of other people who know what they're doing with barbecue, they're going to have to really figure out how do we split hairs, so like literally they're worried about, like the presentation, for instance, and if your rib is a different shade, than the next guy's rib, or if it's a little too brown or charcoal or over smoked or something like that, before they even get to taste it, they're gonna just, you eat with your eyes, right? So that's part of it. Then the tenderness and the taste is then obviously also the things that they compare, but they're comparing rib after rib after rib, or brisket after brisket after brisket, and so you get like one bite, right? And so you want to have that bite be like power packed with like flavor and be perfectly tender. It's about like literally, can you see the teeth mark in the rib that you left, when you take a bite? Did the skin pull with it or not? The last thing you actually want is, what do they call it? Fall off the bone ribs.
Yeah.
That's not something you want in a competition, because that's overcooked.
Oh, I see.
So it's got to be just right that you can take a bite through the skin, leave a teeth mark there. It's perfectly tender, but it's not so. I mean, anyone can make fall off the bone ribs. You just have to cook it for too long, and then the meat falls off. So things like that, and again, some people say, well, that's too much, that's too extreme. It's like, that's great. It's not backyard barbecue. When you're competing, it's a different thing. So
Yeah, that's another animal right there, dude. Wow.
you know
They really take that seriously. Now, not only am I hungry right now after all that, but it's like now I'm like, I mean, you've been through all of these. I can't wait to try your barbecue.
Yeah, dude, we'll have to find an occasion for that. I was fortunate enough to win like the best ribs in Denver one contest, and
Hell
it
yeah,
was pretty
dude.
cool. And
Congratulations. That's awesome. What year was that?
2019.
Nice.
So and then yeah, man, like I just traveled the country, like, just, finding barbecue from all over from my travels as a geologist. Even when I first got into it, though, like my dad raised beef, um, not really for profit. He just kind of, he grew up in Iowa, so he knew how to do that. He had a construction company, of course. And so I was around the grill a ton, but my dad never smoked meat. He never like cooked it for a long time or anything like that.
Mhm.
There was no low and slow. It was just hot and fast on a grill. But I was around it a lot, so I knew what good quality meat tastes like. And then when we go on trips like through the Midwest or something like that, you get a sample of some amazing barbecue, and it introduces the spices and some sauces and stuff like that. And you're just like, this is a different thing, like, the perfect amount of smoke and all that kind of stuff. So really, that's when I got really excited about it. So and then it just kind of grew from there. And then you want to kind of make it for yourself. So
Right.
now I'm fortunate enough to be able to every once in a while go on a trip and sample what the latest, like the best people are doing, and it gets exciting.
Dude, it's just you inspire me every time you talk about it because I see your passion. And as I'm talking to you, I'm looking down at my grill in the backyard under the pergola, and it's always just covered and it's sitting there. It's probably rusted, and it's like this Weber grill that I bought from Home Depot,
Yeah,
thinking like, all right, especially when the pandemic happened, I'm gonna become like a pit master in my own neighborhood. I'm gonna
right.
cook for the family and see my son enjoying it, and it's gonna do it. Nope, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not happened. And it
it
didn't.
depends on if you have access to eat really good things, if if that's really what you want. I mean, that's the thing, is like, being in Colorado, still to this day, there are some amazing places here, but we still don't have the places that somebody else would travel in for.
Okay, I
Right.
see.
So I can have really top-notch barbecue, but none of them are legendary to the, where you would really travel. If somebody travels in, I can take you to some great places, right?
Yeah.
But um, but like the absolute legendary places that I've traveled to are not here. And I mean, at what point will Colorado have the same scene as the Carolinas? Well, there's hundreds of years of history there, right? Texas. I mean, and the origins come from in barbecue. In this started probably in the 1700s. It was
Wow.
mostly the slaves that were eating a lot of barbecue, and they were eating
Yeah.
the toughest types of meat and the cheapest types of meat, and they turned it into what it is today. In Texas, like Central Texas, it was the German settlers. It's weird, you go through Texas, and like Central Texas, you see German inspired architecture in these little towns and these little German names. I mean, I don't know if you knew that, but that's a lot
No,
of people don't realize that, and they go, what the heck? But it's like, it's kind of quasi Germany over there.
it's really
And
interesting.
they like the sausages and the smoked meats. I mean, that was just about preserving meats back in the day. So, and then it evolved from there, right? And so now you've got these places, smokehouses that have been around since the 20s, like 100 years ago.
Wow. It's
And so,
talk about
I mean,
this.
you walk in and you get a sample of like at Smitty's or something like that in, where's that, in Blackhart or Lockhart, Texas. And like, they've salted it and that's all they did to it, but it's perfectly smoked. And it's just, you walk in and you've got these places they call like the Cathedral of Smoke, where there's hundreds of years of smoke on their walls, and
Yeah.
so like, the history and just their tradition of the way that they do things is epic. So it's fascinating.
So with my lack of knowledge, obviously, when I'm talking to somebody like you, when I go to barbecue, my favorite place that I've been to in my life is Terry Black's. It's my wife's as well. I took her to Austin in 2019 because I went there for a blueprint in 18 and she wasn't able to come with me. So I told her, I said, one of these times, because it's such an awesome town, right? I'm like, I'm going to show you Austin. So we went together, just, personal trip, right? Had a great time. And I
Yeah.
took her to Terry Black's. She loved it. And I took her to La Barbecue as well in Austin. And we drove by Franklin's, but, with those tents pitched, and we're like, yeah, forget this. And she says that Terry Black's is her favorite place. And I think I would have to say the same. Now, for somebody like you, based on your experience, would you say that Terry Black's cracks your top 10?
No.
Boom. See, it's like as they say, there's levels to this.
Yeah. I mean, you and I went to Terry Black's in Dallas, dude.
Yeah,
And like,
that's right.
I'm not telling you that that was bad. We had a great meal, dude. Don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's a little bit more mainstream than like when you taste, I mean, dude, it's like we were talking before we got rolling here, talking about some of these fine, dining opportunities in like Las Vegas. I mean, where do the chefs go? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so it's not about being snooty. Some people think it's snooty. Well, I'm not going to stand in line for 3 hours. I get it. You don't have to. You can go to Terry Black's and have an awesome meal. Like, why not? I mean, again, call me when you go to Houston, or I'll go with you or whatever, because there's some amazing places. But they might not necessarily be the absolute pinnacle. But dude, if you're eating top 50 barbecue anywhere, is great. You don't have to eat top 10 or top 5. Like, if you do, you gotta wait in line.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So,
No, you're right, man. And I just think that your taste buds just evolve in a certain way.
that's
For
true. Yeah.
me, outside and what I'm passionate about outside of my career is martial arts, in particular jujitsu.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will go to, jujitsu academies, right, to get some training in. And for someone like me, I don't mean to sound, like condescending or what, but it's just, there's levels to it. And for me, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't go somewhere like that, because it's like
Yeah.
when you've been doing it for so long, you just have a certain expectation, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
with your barbecue taste buds or, like, with martial arts, boxing, whatever the case may be. So that's what my brain immediately goes into, and I can completely understand why you are the way you are, right? I mean, for some of us, like, oh, it's a delicious meal, we'll go and do that, we don't have to wait. But for someone like you who's like passionate about this and looks at it as like a science and does it, practices in their own home with their
Yeah.
own family, I can completely understand why you would go to a place that would take your barbecue skills to the next level.
Yeah. That's it exactly. I mean, it's just, I mean, having been around it as long as I have and having tried it from so many different places, um, I just know what stands out to me and what I think makes a better meal than the next one. But it doesn't mean that like you can't have an amazing. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can take you to some awesome places in Denver and you'd be thrilled. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We can go to Terry Black's every time we go to, we're in the area. But if a couple of the other ones are open that I would put higher than that, then we go, especially if we can endure the lines. But
Yeah, dude.
everything's bigger in Texas, including the lines, dude. And I mean, it's the same thing when you go to South Carolina, and if you want to go to the who's who of barbecue, like everyone's going there. So what can you say?
That's a line I got to tell you that I would wait. If you're in the line, I would wait. Honestly, because I would kind of like watch you and the way you talk to these people. I'm fairly talkative myself. I feel like I would strike up a few,
Oh yeah,
to be fair. But just seeing you be passionate and like, the things, I just wanted to sit back and just like kind of like watch you. And I just think it's really cool, man. So on that note, my
yeah.
last question for you, if this was your last day on earth, you know where I'm going with this, and you're going to have one more barbecue meal because for some reason you just can't have barbecue after this meal. Matt Thomas, where are you eating?
Man, probably Austin, and I would probably go to Valentina's Tex-Mex.
Valentina's Tex-Mex. Okay, that's going on my
Or
Yelp bookmark list after this talk.
or I would go to oh man, I don't know. There's a handful of 2 or 3 places in. I mean, I would make the circuit. That's what I would do. My last
Yeah.
meal would have to be a circuit. I'd have to
Okay.
go
Good
to
circuit.
Mickelwait's in Austin, and we'd have to get the green chili grits,
Uh-huh.
and then we'd probably go somewhere for the yeah. Anyway, the breakfast tacos at uh, at Valentina's are just ridiculous. They're just amazing. Brisket breakfast tacos,
Oh, that
ridiculous.
sounds really
They're
good,
ridiculous. Yep.
actually. So I'm no joke. We got to do a Texas trip together this year,
100%.
So whether it's Austin or Houston or one of these, you've really got me excited about this. So I'm going to be watching those trips, the
Yeah,
dates, for the conference, and I'll coordinate with you, Matt.
let's do it.
All right, bro. Well, hey, I really appreciate you tuning in. You are my favorite agent out of Colorado. I'm really happy we were able to do this,
I
you
appreciate it,
know.
man.
And yeah, dude. And that being said, I hope to see you in person soon.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
we're
hopefully
gonna
next
we're gonna
month.
what's that?
Next month,
Yeah, that's right. Elite retreat. And
Vegas.
we'll do another one. We'll do another
Yeah,
one of these conversations after that.
sounds good, man.
All
I
right,
appreciate
Matt.
you having me on. And just more than anything, just cool to hang out and chat with you. So
Yeah, dude. Likewise. You made my day. You honestly did. So I'm gonna I'll throw this up on the channels and stuff like that, and then we'll chat again soon. Okay, Matt?
we didn't even talk about Niners and Broncos yet. So
Oh my God. Lastly, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. So I'm really happy about that second seed. Curious to see where D'Amico Ryan goes. I'm like, is he going to go to the Broncos? Is he going to go to Houston? I don't think that they would allow him to go to the Cardinals because I saw Cliff Kingsbury get fired this morning, which I thought would happen. So
right.
some big things going on, huh?
D'Amico, I would imagine D'Amico goes back to Houston
Uh huh.
because they've got the history. The Broncos can't afford to take another chance on a guy who doesn't have the experience. I think D'Amico Ryan's is going to be the next great thing, but I don't think that he is. I don't think he's our next hire. We got to go with somebody who absolutely has no excuse but to knock it out of the park. I
Yeah.
told you before. I know you don't like this, but the biggest thing that happened to the Broncos was Kyle Shanahan walked out of our doors after we interviewed him. He's a homegrown guy, dude. I mean, he grew up here. I know obviously the Shanahans have history in 49er land too, but dude,
Mhm.
Kyle Shanahan grew up a Broncos fan, grew up here. He was a ball boy. He was obviously the whole thing, went to school here. That was our guy. We all knew it. When he left and we hired Vance Joseph, it was just like, what are we doing? And it's come to roost, dude. This is the worst mistake that I hate to say this, but that the King John Elway has ever made.
Well, let's talk
Letting
about former 49ers head coaches. What are your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh?
um I don't love him, but he's probably what we need. Like I just think he's a pompous ass, but he is,
Yes.
I think he's going to get the job done. We need somebody who brings structure because of who we just had. So we
Yeah.
need that. And you can't argue with his track record of success, dude. So I'm into it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely be talking, during the off season, and we'll see what happens. We'll see each other next month, and then this next podcast episode that we do will definitely be. I'm going to incorporate much more football talk in that.
Sounds good, buddy.
Thanks, Matt, dude. Like
All
I
right,
said,
man.
Matt, you made my day. I hope you have a productive one.
All right, you too, buddy. See
Bye,
ya.
dude. Take it easy. Bye now.